Now, in regards to kind of the state of the nation right now, we've seen inflation cooling recently. Rate cuts, though, are very much back on are back on the table, and Bitcoin instantly popped over 113K on this news. How much of Bitcoin's next big move do you think is tied to Powell's rate cuts versus actual real-world adoption? Are we just waiting for some kind of catalyst right now to that next leg up?
I think there are a few things going on. So August, and I can't recall if I talked about this with you last time. August and September are
Hmm.
typically rougher months for Bitcoin. I know people brought up
Yeah.
that in post-halving years, Bitcoin typically does well in August and September. The thing about it is this cycle, quote unquote, is not following the paradigm that we've had in other cycles, right? So we had an all-time high before the halving. We've had price action right now that I think bucks that trend. We've also had decreasing volatility since the ETF launched. I don't think that is a
Yeah.
bad thing. I think that is a function of market cap. That is a function of adoption. That's a function of a maturing asset that's going through the adoption curve. Now, to your question more directly about what do I think needs to happen or what, catalysts that we would need, I think seasonality and sentiment is a big one. I've been trying to make people aware of the fact that markets move on sentiment, not on fundamentals. Fundamentals may fundamentals and liquidity may create the capacity, but sentiment is what creates the bid. And I think the bid is going to be coming in Q4. I think we have seasonal trends on our side. We have rate cuts that are coming. We might see some people are saying we may even see 3 rate cuts before the year is out, including the
Ooh.
one that we might see in September. So I think that's a little aggressive. I think we can see 2 rate cuts this year, including September. All of that leads to, a narrative shift that will allow the markets to run. I mean, the last time Powell spoke, he seemed somewhat dovish and the market spiked immediately, right? But then we retraced a little
Hmm.
bit. And I think we can, well, this is where I'm going to sound somewhat bullish. When Powell speaks, if he comes out with a rate cut and he also comes out more dovish, I think Bitcoin can start its run into the end of September, into the end of the year. That's my guess. And I think that,
Yeah.
and I know we'll be talking about this in a little bit, the calls for 200K, a little aggressive for this year.
Yeah.
150 to 175, I think that's doable. And I think we will then
Hmm.
see where we're at probably Q1 2026 if we see a stronger retracement. Long story short, I don't think we're going to see an 80% drawdown. I don't think the boom bust cycle is going to repeat itself unless, again, geopolitical or macroeconomic events take place. But those are outliers that no one can really predict. But the catalysts I think we need are the rate cuts becoming official, which I think the market's already kind of pricing in. I think seasonality is on our side. I think liquidity is going to increase into the end of the year, into Q4. And I think that tying into the rate cuts, if Powell comes out more dovish, or if he does actually give us more than 1 rate cut before the year is out, I think that's also very, very bullish for Bitcoin as well.
All right, we're bringing back Adrian. Adrian, Sora Ventures is trying to build a $1 billion Bitcoin treasury in only 6 months. Is this a serious institutional play, or is it just another look at us press release type thing? What do you think?
It could be a little bit of both. I think that,
Yeah.
if Q4 does well, will they get the kind of capital inflows and the potential to raise $1 billion? It's possible. But I think
Hmm.
this represents more broadly is the Bitcoin adoption cycle has an entirely different structure to it right now. We have an entirely different investor base. We have the institutions, we have the
Hmm.
corporations, and we have retail, right? And I think all 3 of those are interacting in the market right now. And, I'll put it to you this way. If I've been in Bitcoin since 2012, if in 2016, 2020, there had been even, and I'm talking about before strategy, right? So before then, if any of this news had come out, Bitcoin's price would have skyrocketed. The fact that it
Yeah.
hasn't tells me that we kind of like what I was talking about earlier, Bitcoin is becoming a mature asset class, a mature asset, and is going through the maturation phase, and that's what this is. We're going to see different regions, different institutions, different funds, different corporations come in and make, some will make realistic goals, some will have grandiose goals. But I think all of it directionally is good for Bitcoin because it shows that the world different and different regions of the world are approaching Bitcoin in their own way. So Sora Ventures to me just
Mhm.
represents another rung in that ladder towards broader adoption of Bitcoin. And whether they hit their billion goal or not, I think the fact that, I mean, they were even willing to come out and say it tells me that they must at least have some inkling that they're able to achieve it. But
Yeah.
that being said, even if they don't achieve it, let's say they only get to, half or three quarters, I think that's a net positive for Bitcoin, assuming that they become a longer term steward of Bitcoin and they're a longer term holder. So this is all good for me. As long as none of these companies are playing what can be called, sentiment games, I guess you can say, that they're just announcing these programs. They're making an initial
Mhm.
purchase, and then you don't hear anything about them purchasing for 6 months, 9 months, a year. I think it's a net
Mhm.
positive for Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And yeah, to your point, yeah, I think we are entering a very new phase of Bitcoin's maturation process because back in the day, these types of headlines would have moved things really, quickly. And we've seen that on the other end of the spectrum too with the Galaxy Digital dump we saw a couple of, was it weeks or 2 months ago, where they sold 80,000 over the course of a weekend. But the market really reacted pretty nominally, and we're seeing that on both sides too. So, but it seems like the support, like we always joke, like it's up and to the right, but the supports are being built, so it's not going to see those undulations like we've seen in the past so quickly. It's just nice and slow up and to the right. We won't see the volatility because yeah, this new institutional money in play seems to really be supporting Bitcoin's price foundation and. The seeming stability that we've seen from it late, at least compared to past Bitcoin cycles, would seem to reinforce that idea. And going
And
back to
that's
Sora, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually part of my thesis, what you just said. I call it the stairway to
Mm.
heaven. I think we're getting new
Mm.
rungs that are being built, and we're stabilizing at each rung, and we're going to see that upward momentum. It'll be less violent, and less dramatic, but it'll be more steady. The fact that
Right.
I looked into the number the other day. We've been at over 100K essentially for quite a while now.